Jake Morrison sat at the small dining table in his quarters aboard the starship Aurora, staring at his cup of coffee like it held the answers to the universe. The morning shift would begin in 30 minutes, and he wanted to enjoy these quiet moments before the day's chaos began. Outside the viewport, stars moved slowly past as the ship traveled through deep space. His wife Zarathik moved around their small kitchen with the grace that came naturally to her people. Her forearms worked smoothly as she prepared breakfast, her blue skin shimmering slightly under the artificial lights. Even after 7 years of marriage, Jake still found himself amazed by how beautiful she was. Their daughter Amy sat at the table next to Jake, carefully eating her cereal while reading a book about Earth animals. At 5 years old, she was already reading at a level that would make most human children twice her age jealous. Her mixed heritage showed in her appearance. She had her mother's blue-tinted skin, but only 2 arms like her father. Her dark hair fell in loose curls around her face. "Daddy, why do tigers have stripes?" Amy asked, looking up from her book with curious eyes that were definitely her mother's, large and golden. "Well, sweetheart, the stripes help them hide in tall grass when they hunt," Jake explained, reaching over to smooth her hair. "It's called camouflage." Zarathik placed a plate of eggs and toast in front of Jake, then sat down across from him with her own breakfast. She had been unusually quiet this morning, and Jake could tell something was on her mind. After 15 years of military service and 7 years of marriage, he had learned to read the signs. "Jake," she said softly, her voice carrying the musical quality that all Valthari voices had, "I have been thinking about something important." Jake took a sip of his coffee and nodded. "What's on your mind?" Zarathik looked at Amy, who was now completely absorbed in her book again, then back at Jake. "I want to have more children." Jake nearly choked on his coffee. He set the cup down carefully, trying to process what she had just said. "More children? How many more?" 10, Zarathik said simply, as if she had just asked him to pass the salt. This time Jake did choke. Coffee went everywhere as he coughed and sputtered. Amy looked up with concern while Zarathik calmly handed him a napkin. 10? Jake managed to say between coughs. "Did you say 10? "Yes, 10 children total. Including Amy, that would be 9 more. Zarathik spoke as if this was the most reasonable request in the galaxy. Jake stared at his wife, trying to understand if she was joking. But Valthari rarely joked about family matters, and the serious expression on her face told him she was completely sincere. "Zara, honey, that's a lot of children," Jake said carefully. "I mean, Amy keeps us pretty busy already." Amy looked up at the mention of her name. "Are you talking about me?" "We're just discussing family stuff, sweetheart," Jake said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Keep reading your book." Zarathik reached across the table and took Jake's hand with 2 of her own. In Valthari culture, a family is not complete without at least 8 to 12 children. I have been patient, understanding that humans prefer smaller families. But Amy is 5 now, and I feel ready to expand our family properly. Jake felt his head spinning. When they had gotten married, they had talked about having children, but he had assumed they meant 1 or 2, maybe 3 at most. The idea of 10 children seemed impossible. "But Zara, think about the practical side of this," Jake said. "We live on a starship. Our quarters are small. How would we even fit 10 children in here?" "We could request larger quarters," Zarathik replied. "The ship has family sections that can accommodate large families. Many Valthari families aboard other ships have 8 or more children." Jake rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. "It's not just about space. It's about time, energy, resources. Taking care of 1 child is already challenging. 10 would be..." "Wonderful," Zarathik finished. "Jake, in my culture, children our greatest joy. Large families are strong families. The children learn from each other, support each other, and grow together. Amy would have siblings to play with, to learn from." Amy looked up again. "I want a baby brother," she announced, then went back to her book. Jake looked at his daughter, then at his wife. He could see the hope in Zarathik's golden eyes, and he knew this conversation was far from over. "Look, I'm not saying no, Jake. said slowly. But this is a big decision. Can we maybe start with one more child and see how that goes? Zarathik's face fell slightly. One more? Jake, that would only be 2 children total. That is not a family, that is barely a beginning. For humans, 2 children is a normal family size, Jake pointed out. Some families have only 1 child. Some have none at all. But you are not just human anymore, Zarathik said gently. You are part of a Velthari family now. Our customs matter too, Jake sighed. She was right, of course. When he had married Zarathik, he had accepted that their life together would be different from a typical human marriage. But 10 children seemed like too much, even for an interspecies. Marriage? Can we compromise? Jake asked. Maybe 5 children total? That's more than most human families, but less than a typical Velthari family. Zarathik considered this. 5 is still quite small by our standards. But I suppose it would be better than 2. She paused, then added, though I would still prefer the full 10. Jake finished his coffee, his mind racing. He thought about his fellow crew members and what they would say about this. Dr. Lisa Shun, the ship's chief medical officer, had warned him that hybrid pregnancies could be complicated. Engineer Carlos Rodriguez had 3 children of his own and was always complaining about how exhausting they were. Navigator Ben Thompson was single and often joked that he was too smart to have children at all. I need some time to think about this, Jake said finally. This is a big decision, and I want to make sure we're doing the right thing for our family. Zarathik nodded, though Jake could see she was disappointed. Of course, but please do not take too long to decide. I'm not getting any younger, and Velthari women are most fertile between the ages of 30 and 40. I am 32 now. Jake reached over and squeezed her hand. I love you, Zara, and I want you to be happy. I just need to wrap my head around this. I love you too, Zarathik replied. And I want you to be happy as well. But I also want our family to be complete. Amy suddenly looked up from her book with excitement. Mommy, if we have more babies, can I help take care of them? Zarathik smiled, her first real smile of the morning. Of course, little one. In Velthari families, the older children always help with the younger ones. It is part of learning to be a good family member. Jake watched his daughter's face light up with joy at the idea of being a big sister to many children. He could see that for Amy, having more siblings would be wonderful. But the thought of 9 more children still made his stomach turn dot as they finished breakfast and prepared for the day ahead. Jake knew that his quiet morning routine was about to become a lot more complicated. The question was no longer whether they would have more children, but how many and how they would manage. Such a large family in the confined space of a starship, one thing was certain, his life was about to change in ways he had never imagined. Jake Morrison stood at his post on the bridge of the Aurora, trying to focus on the navigation reports from Ben Thompson. But his mind kept drifting back to the breakfast conversation with Zarathik, 10 children. The number kept echoing in his head like a broken record. Jake, you look like someone stole your lunch, said Captain Helen Rodriguez from her command chair. The captain was a woman in her 50s with gray streaks in her dark hair and laugh lines around her eyes. She had been commanding the Aurora for 8 years and had seen Jake through his courtship and marriage to Zarathik. Just thinking about some family stuff, Jake replied, checking the star charts on his console. Family stuff can be the hardest kind of stuff, Helen said knowingly. Want to talk about it after shift? Before Jake could answer, the communication system chirped. Incoming message from Kepler Station, announced Lieutenant Sam Baker from the communications station. They're confirming our docking request for tomorrow morning. Excellent, Helen said. It'll be good to stretch our legs. On a real station for a few days? Jake nodded, but he wasn't really listening. Kepler Station was a massive space station that served as a trading hub for dozens of different alien species. It would be their first stop in 3 months, and normally Jake would be excited about the shore leave. But right now, all he could think about was his conversation with Zara *THA got the shift ended, and Jake made his way to the mess hall where he usually met his friends for dinner. Dr. Lisa Chan was already there, sitting with engineer Carlos Rodriguez and navigator Ben Thompson. Lisa was a small woman with short black hair and quick, intelligent eyes. Carlos was a big man with calloused hands and a ready smile. Ben was tall and thin with red hair and freckles. "There's our favorite family man," Carlos said as Jake sat down with his dinner tray. "How's little Amy doing?" "She's fine," Jake said, picking at his food. "Still reading everything she can get her hands on." "That kid is scary smart," Ben said, shaking his head. "Yesterday she explained quantum physics to me better than my academy professor did. It's the mixed heritage," Lisa explained. "Valthari? Children develop intellectually much faster than human children. Amy's getting the best of both species." Jake saw his opening. "Speaking of mixed heritage, what do you guys know about large families?" "I mean, really large families," Carlos laughed. "I've got 3 kids, and that's plenty for me." "Why, are you and Zara thinking about having another baby?" "Something like that," Jake said carefully. "How many children do you think is too many?" 4. "Humans? More than 4 is getting pretty crazy," Ben said. "I mean, look at Carlos. He's got 3 kids and he's already going gray." "Hey, I was going gray before I had kids," Carlos protested. "But seriously, Jake, 3 is a lot of work." "I can't imagine having more than that." Lisa leaned forward, her medical training making her curious. "Are you asking for a specific reason?" "Is Zarathik pregnant?" "No, she's not pregnant," Jake said quickly. "We're just discussing family planning." "Well, from a medical standpoint, human Valthari hybrids are generally very healthy," Lisa said. "But they do require more nutritional support than either pure human or pure Valthari children. Each pregnancy would need careful monitoring." "How many more are you thinking about having?" Carlos asked. Jake hesitated. "Hypothetically, what would you say if I told you Zarathik wanted 10 children total?" The table went completely silent. Carlos dropped his fork. Ben's mouth fell open. Lisa stared at Jake like he had grown a second head. 10? Ben finally squeaked. "As in the number that comes after 9? "That's not hypothetical, is it?" Lisa asked quietly. "Zarathik actually wants 10 children," Jake nodded miserably. "She told me this morning. Apparently, in Valthari culture, you need at least 8 to 12 children to have a proper family." Carlos whistled low. "Man, that's a lot of kids. I mean, I love my 3, but 10? That's like running a small school. Think about the logistics." Ben said, his navigator's mind already working. "Your quarters would need to be expanded. The food requirements alone would be enormous. And the noise, dear God, the noise." "It's not just about the practical stuff," Jake said. "I'm not sure I can handle being a father to 10 children. I mean, I love Amy more than anything, but she's already so smart and energetic." 10 kids like that?" Lisa reached across the table and patted Jake's hand. "Have you considered that this might be about more than just having children? For Zarathik, this could be about maintaining her cultural identity. She's the only Valthari woman on this ship. Having a large family might be her way of staying connected to her heritage." Before Jake could respond, the mess hall doors opened and Zarathik walked in with Amy. They had been at Amy's evening education session, and Amy was chattering excitedly about something she had learned. "Daddy," Amy ran over to Jake. "I learned about Earth dolphins today. Did you know they can recognize themselves in mirrors?" "That's amazing, sweetheart," Jake said, lifting Amy onto his lap. "What else did you learn?" While Amy told him about dolphins, Jake noticed Zarathik talking quietly with Lisa. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see the serious expressions on both their faces. "Jake," Zarathik said as she approached their table, "I need to tell you something important. I received a message from my sister today." Jake felt his stomach drop. Zarathik's sister, Nixara, was a commander in the Valthari Defense Fleet. She was also the mother of 7 children and had very strong opinions about family traditions. "She's coming to visit us on Kepler Station," Zarathik continued. "She'll be arriving tomorrow with her family." "All 7 of her kids?" Carlos asked, his eyes wide. "Yes, all 7, Zarathik confirmed. She wanted to meet Amy and spend some time with us. I hope that's all right." Jake tried to smile, but inside he was panicking. Nixara had never approved of Zarathik marrying a human, and she had made it clear that she thought their family was too small. Having her visit now when they were already discussing having more children, seemed like terrible timing. "Of course it's all right," Jake said, though his voice sounded strained. "Family is always welcome." Amy bounced excitedly in Jake's lap. "I'm going to have cousins to play with." "That's right, little one," Zarathik said, smiling at her daughter. "And they're all very excited to meet you." After dinner, Jake and Zarathik walked Amy back to their quarters. Amy was so excited about meeting her cousins that she could barely contain herself. "Daddy, do you think they'll like me?" Amy asked, as Zarathik helped her get ready for bed. "They're going to love you," Jake assured her. "You're amazing, and they're going to see that right away." As they tucked Amy into bed, Jake couldn't help but think about what tomorrow would bring. 7. Velthari children running around Kepler Station with his own daughter trying to keep up. And Nixara, who would undoubtedly have opinions about their family size, later that night. As Jake and Zarathik lay in bed, she turned to him with a serious expression. "Jake, I know that having my sister visit might be difficult," she said softly. "But I think it will be good for you to see what a large Velthari family is really like. It's not chaos like humans seem to think. It's organized, loving, and supportive." Jake sighed. "I'm not worried about chaos, Zara. I'm worried about whether I can be a good father to so many children. What if I can't give them all the attention they need?" "In Velthari families, the parents are not the only ones who raise the children," Zarathik explained. "The older children help with the younger ones. They learn responsibility and caring. It's not just about having more children, Jake. It's about creating a strong, connected family unit." Jake stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that was happening. Tomorrow they would dock at Kepler Station, and he would meet Nixara and her 7 children. He would see firsthand what a large Velthari family looked like. Maybe then he would understand what Zarathik was really asking for. Or maybe he would be even more convinced that 10 children was impossible. Either way, tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day. Jake Morrison stood at the docking bay window of Kepler Station, watching the Velthari transport ship approach. His hands were sweating, and he kept wiping them on his uniform pants. Next to him, Zarathik bounced Amy gently in her arms, both of them excited to see their family. "There it is," Zarathik said, pointing to the sleek blue ship that was now connecting to the station. "The Swift Current. Nixara named it after a river on our home world." Amy pressed her face against the window. "Is that really where my cousins are?" "Yes, sweetheart," Zarathik replied. "All 7 of them," Jake tried to calm his nerves. He had met Nixara only once before at his wedding, and she had been polite but distant. She had made it clear that she thought Zarathik was making a mistake by marrying a human, especially one who might not understand Velthari family traditions. The docking bay doors opened, and the first person to emerge was Nixara herself. She was taller than Zarathik, with darker blue skin and silver markings along her forearms. She wore the uniform of a Velthari fleet commander, and she moved with the confidence of someone used to being in charge. Behind her came her 7 children, ranging in age from about 3 to 15. They were all pure Velthari, with 4 arms each and the graceful movements of their species. But what struck Jake most was how they stayed close together, the older ones naturally watching out for the younger ones. "Sister," Nixara said in her deep voice, embracing Zarathik with all 4 arms, "it is good to see you." "And you as well," Zarathik replied. "Children, come meet your Uncle Jake and your cousin Amy." The 7 children approached in order of age, each one politely greeting Jake and then kneeling down to Amy's level to introduce themselves. Jake was surprised by how well behaved they were. He had expected chaos, but instead he saw organization and respect. "I am Keksan," said the oldest, a boy who looked about 15. "I help take care of my younger siblings." "I am Velara," said a girl who appeared to be about 12. "I teach the little ones their lessons." One by one, they introduced themselves: Nixel, Cathara, Zarin, Mixel, and finally little Velm, who was only 3 years old and hid behind her older siblings. Amy was fascinated. She had never met other children who looked like her mother, and she stared at their 4 arms with obvious curiosity. "Why do you only have 2 arms?" asked Zarin, who was about Amy's age. Because my daddy is human, Amy explained proudly. Humans only have 2 arms, but we're really good at using them. Jake felt some of his tension ease. The children were clearly curious about Amy, but not in a mean way. They seemed genuinely interested in learning about their half-human cousin. Commander Morrison, Nixara said formally, turning to Jake. Thank you for welcoming my family aboard your station. It's our pleasure, Jake replied, trying to match her formal tone. We're honored to have you visit. Over the next few hours, Jake watched in amazement as the Velthari children explored Kepler Station. They moved as a group, with the older ones automatically keeping track of the younger ones. When little Veln got tired, Kexan picked her up without being asked. When Zarin had trouble understanding something, Valara patiently explained it. At lunch, Jake sat with Nixara while the children ate at their own table. Amy was in the middle of them, chattering away and clearly having the time of her life. Your daughter is remarkable, Nixara said, watching Amy show her cousins how to use human eating utensils. She has adapted well to being part of both cultures. She's pretty special, Jake agreed. Zarathik has done an amazing job raising her. And you as well, Nixara said, surprising Jake. I can see that Amy loves you very much. But I must ask, do you truly understand what it means to be part of a Velthari family? Jake took a deep breath. I'm learning. Zarathik has been patient with me, but I know I still have a lot to understand. A Velthari family is not just about having many children, Nixara explained. It is about creating a support system where everyone takes care of everyone else. The older children learn responsibility by helping with the younger ones. The parents provide guidance and wisdom, and the family unit becomes stronger than any individual member. Jake nodded, watching as Kexan helped his youngest sister eat her lunch. I can see how that would work. But I'm still not sure I'm ready for 10 children. How many do you think you could handle? Nixara asked directly. Jake considered carefully. Maybe 4 or 5 total. I want to be a good father, and I'm afraid if I have too many children, I won't be able to give them the attention they need. That is human thinking, Nixara said, not unkindly. You think of parenting as something only parents do. But in a Velthari family, everyone raises the children. Amy would help with her younger siblings. The older children would teach the younger ones. You would not be alone in this. That afternoon, Jake spent time with the children while Zarathik and Nixara visited other parts of the station. He was amazed by how well the children worked together. When they played games, they made sure everyone could participate. When they explored the station, they moved as a coordinated group. Uncle Jake, said Valara, the 12-year-old, may I ask you something? Of course, Jake replied. Do you not want more children because you think they would be too much work? Jake was surprised by the directness of the question. Partly, yes. Taking care of children is a big responsibility. But it gets easier when there are more of us, Kexan said, joining the conversation. I help teach the little ones to read. Valara helps them with their numbers. We all help with daily tasks. Mother and father don't have to do everything alone. And it's more fun when there are more of us, added Zarin. We always have someone to play with, someone to talk to, someone to learn from. Jake looked around at the 7 children, all of whom were now listening to the conversation. He could see that they genuinely loved being part of a large family. They didn't see it as crowded or chaotic. They saw it as normal, even wonderful. That evening, Jake found himself sitting alone in his quarters, thinking about everything he had seen and heard. Captain Helen Rodriguez knocked on his door and entered when he called for her to come in. Rough day? She asked, settling into a chair across from him. Enlightening day, Jake replied. Helen, can I ask you something? You have 3 children. Do you ever wish you had more? Helen smiled. Sometimes. But my husband and I decided 3 was right for our family. Every family is different, Jake. The question isn't what's normal or what other people do. The question is what's right for you and Zarathik. I think I'm starting to understand what she's asking for, Jake said slowly. It's not just about having more children. It's about creating the kind of family she grew up in. The kind where everyone takes care of everyone else. And what do you think about that? Helen asked. Jake was quiet for a moment. I think maybe I've been looking at this the wrong way. I've been thinking about 10 children as 10 times the work. But what if it's not? What if it's 10 times the joy? Helen nodded. That's a very different way to think about it. I'm still not sure I'm ready for 10, Jake admitted. But maybe I could handle more than I thought. Maybe 4 or 5 more wouldn't be impossible. Have you talked to Zarathik about this? Not yet. I wanted to think it through first. But seeing Nixara's family today, seeing how they work together, how they support each other, it made me realize that I don't have to do this alone. Helen stood up to leave. Whatever you decide, Jake, make sure it's a decision you can live with, and make sure Zarathik can live with it too. After Helen left, Jake sat in his quarters for a long time, thinking about his family and his future. Through the wall, he could hear Amy's laughter as she played with her cousins. The sound made him smile. Maybe having a larger family wouldn't be so scary after all. Maybe it would be the best thing that ever happened to them, but first he needed to talk to his wife. 2 years had passed since Nixara's visit to Kepler Station, and Jake Morrison could hardly recognize his life anymore. He stood in the doorway of their expanded quarters aboard the Aurora, watching his wife, Zarathik, feed their 80-month-old twins, Alex and Maya. While 7-year-old Amy helped by entertaining them with silly faces, the twins were remarkable, even by hybrid standards. Alex had inherited his father's brown hair, but his mother's golden eyes and quick intelligence. Maya looked more like her mother with blue-tinted skin, but she had Jake's stubborn personality. Both children were already walking, talking in 2 languages and showing problem-solving skills that amazed the entire crew. "Daddy, watch this," Amy said excitedly. She held up a simple puzzle and showed it to Alex. "Can you put the circle in the right spot?" Alex studied the puzzle for a moment, then carefully placed the circular piece in its proper place. Maya immediately grabbed her own puzzle and did the same thing, not wanting to be left out. "They're getting too smart for their own good," Jake said, coming into the room and sitting down next to Zarathik. "All Velthari children develop quickly," Zarathik replied, wiping Maya's face with a cloth. "But these 2 are special even for hybrids. Dr. Chung says their brain development is ahead of schedule for both species." Jake smiled as he watched his children. The decision to have more kids had not been easy, but it had turned out better than he ever imagined. After his conversation with Captain Rodriguez and his experience with Nixara's family, he had agreed to try for 4 more children total. Zarathik had been disappointed that it wasn't the full 10 she wanted, but she had agreed to the compromise. The pregnancy with the twins had been challenging but manageable. Dr. Lisa Chun had monitored everything carefully, and the Aurora's medical bay had been upgraded to handle hybrid births. The whole crew had been excited about the new arrivals, and now Alex and Maya were like mascots for the entire ship. "Jake," Zarathik said softly, "I have something to tell you." Jake looked at his wife, noting the familiar tone in her voice. It was the same tone she had used 2 years ago when she first asked for 10 children. "What is it?" he asked, though he had a feeling he already knew. "I went to see Dr. Chun yesterday for my regular checkup," Zarathik said, her golden eyes sparkling. "I'm pregnant again." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "Pregnant already?" "Yes, about 6 weeks along," Zarathik confirmed. "Dr. Chun says everything looks normal so far." Amy looked up from playing with her siblings. "Mommy's having another baby?" "Yes, sweetheart," Zarathik said, reaching over to stroke Amy's hair. "You're going to be a big sister again." Amy clapped her hands together excitedly. "Can we have a boy this time?" "I want a little brother." Jake was still processing the news. According to their agreement, this would be their 4th child, leaving 1 more to reach their compromise of 5 total. But he found himself feeling excited rather than worried. The twins had been a joy, and Amy had blossomed as a big sister. "How are you feeling?" Jake asked Zarathik. "Good, mostly. A little tired, but that's normal," she replied. "Dr. Chun wants to see me weekly to monitor the pregnancy, especially since this will be our 3rd hybrid birth." Over the next few weeks, news of the pregnancy spread throughout the Aurora. The crew was excited, and many of them had become like extended family to the Morrison children. Engineer Carlos Rodriguez had taught Amy how to use basic tools. Navigator Ben Thompson regularly played strategy games with her that challenged her developing mind. Even Captain Rodriguez had taken a special interest in the family. One evening, Jake was in the ship's recreational area with Amy and the twins when Dr. Chun approached him with a tablet in her hand. "Jake, I need to talk to you about Zarathik's pregnancy," she said, her voice serious. Jake felt his stomach tighten. "Is something wrong?" "Not wrong, exactly, but unexpected," Lisa replied. "I did another scan today, and there's something you need to know." She showed Jake the tablet screen, which displayed what looked like a medical scan. Jake could see shapes that he assumed were babies, but he couldn't make sense of what he was looking at. "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be seeing," Jake said. "You're looking at 3 heartbeats, Jake," Lisa said with a small smile. "Zarathik is carrying triplets." Jake stared at the screen, his mind going blank. "Triplets? As in 3 babies?" "3 babies," Lisa confirmed. 2 boys and 1 girl, as far as I can tell. They all appear to be developing normally. Jake sat down heavily in the nearest chair. 3 more children. That would bring their total to 6 kids, 1 more than their agreed-upon compromise of 5. "Does Zarathik know?" he asked. "I told her just before I came to find you," Lisa said. "She's excited, but she wanted me to break the news to you gently." Amy, who had been listening to the conversation, ran over to Jake. "Daddy, are we really having 3 babies?" "It looks that way, sweetheart," Jake said, lifting her onto his lap. "That's even better than 1 baby brother," Amy said happily. "I can teach all of them things." Jake found himself laughing despite his shock. Amy's enthusiasm was infectious, and he realized that he wasn't as scared as he thought he would be. The twins had taught him that he could handle more than he had originally believed. That night, after putting all the children to bed, Jake and Zarathik sat together in their small living area. "Are you upset?" Zarathik asked quietly. "Surprised?" "Yes." "Upset? No," Jake replied honestly. "I'm just trying to wrap my head around having 6 children instead of 5. 6 is still not 10, Zarathik pointed out with a small smile. "No, it's not," Jake agreed. "But 6 is a lot closer to 10 than I ever thought I'd get." "The children will help," Zarathik said. "Amy already helps with Alex and Maya. When the triplets come, she and the twins will all be able to help in different ways." Jake nodded. He had seen how well Amy had adapted to being a big sister. She was patient with the twins, helped feed them, and even changed diapers when needed. The idea of having older children help with younger ones was starting to make more sense to him. "We're going to need bigger quarters," Jake said practically. "I already spoke with Captain Rodriguez about that," Zarathik replied. "There are family quarters on Deck 7 that can accommodate larger families. We would have 4 bedrooms and a bigger living area." "4 bedrooms?" Jake repeated. "That sounds like a real house, not just ship quarters." "It will be our home," Zarathik said simply. Over the following months, Jake watched his family prepare for the arrival of the triplets. Amy practiced reading stories that she could tell to her new siblings. The twins, though still very young, seemed to understand that something exciting was happening. The crew of the Aurora helped convert the new quarters, adding safety features and child-friendly furniture. Dr. Chun monitored the pregnancy closely, and everything progressed normally. Jake found himself taking classes on Velthari child development, wanting to understand his children's heritage better. He learned about their rapid intellectual growth, their need for mental stimulation, and the importance of family bonds in their culture. Captain Rodriguez called Jake to her office one day, about a month before the babies were due. "I've been thinking about your family situation," she said without preamble. "And I have a proposition for you." "What kind of proposition?" Jake asked. "The Federation is starting a new program for interspecies families. They want to document successful human-alien partnerships and their children. Your family would be perfect candidates," Helen explained. "It would mean some additional responsibilities, but also additional resources and support." "What kind of responsibilities?" "You'd help develop guidelines for other interspecies families. Share your experiences. Help write training materials, that sort of thing." In exchange, you get access to specialized education programs for your children, expanded quarters, and support staff. Jake considered this support staff, childcare specialists, educational coordinators, cultural advisors, people who understand both human and Velthari child development, Helen said. It would help you manage a larger family while contributing to something important. The idea appealed to Jake. He had learned so much about raising hybrid children, and the thought of helping other families like his seemed worthwhile. I'll need to talk to Zarathik about it, he said. Of course. Take your time. That evening, Jake discussed the proposal with his wife. She was immediately interested in the idea of helping other interspecies families. It would be good for our children, too, she pointed out. They would grow up knowing that their family is not strange or unusual, but special and valuable. Jake agreed. As he looked around their quarters, now filled with toys and children's laughter, he realized how much his life had changed. 2 years ago, the idea of 6 children had seemed impossible. Now, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The triplets would arrive soon, and their family would be complete. Or at least mostly complete. He still hadn't ruled out the possibility of more children in the future. After all, Zarathik had originally wanted 10. Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the Aurora, holding his 6-month-old son Danny while watching the stars move past the window. Behind him, he could hear the cheerful chaos of his family's morning routine. 2-year-old twins Alex and Nia were arguing over who got to help feed their triplet siblings, while 9-year-old Amy patiently refereed their dispute. "Daddy, Sam spit up on my shirt," called Sophie, one of the triplets from the living area. "I'll get you a clean one," Amy's voice replied. Already taking charge of the situation, Jake smiled as he turned back toward their quarters. 3 years ago, he had been terrified at the thought of having 10 children. Now, with 6 kids ranging from 6 months to 9 years old, he couldn't imagine his life any other way. The Aurora had become something special over the past few years. What started as a simple research vessel had evolved into the galaxy's first interspecies family development center. Jake's family had been the pilot program, and their success had attracted attention from across known space. "Good morning, Commander Morrison," said Dr. Elena Vasquez as she entered the observation deck. Elena was the center's new director, a specialist in interspecies child development who had joined the Aurora 6 months ago. "Morning, Elena," Jake replied, adjusting Danny in his arms. "How are our new families settling in?" "Very well." The Relian human couple in Sector C had their first child yesterday, and the Altarian human family in Sector B is expecting twins next month, Elena reported. "They're all eager to learn from your family's experience," Jake nodded. The Aurora now housed 12 interspecies families, all learning from each other and contributing to the growing database of information about mixed heritage children. It had become a traveling community, a place where different species could come together and build lives among the stars. "Commander Morrison to the bridge," came Captain Rodriguez's voice over the communication system. "Duty calls," Jake said, handing Danny to Elena. "Can you take him back to Zarathik?" "I think she's in the lab with the older kids." Jake made his way to the bridge, where he found Captain Rodriguez studying a star chart with Navigator Ben Thompson. "What's our situation?" Jake asked as he took his position. "We're approaching the Kepler system," Helen said. "Remember that new planet the survey teams discovered last month? Kepler 442b? We're going to be the first ship to do a detailed study." Jake looked at the display showing their destination. Kepler 442b was a planet in the habitable zone of its star, with oceans, continents, and possibly even primitive life. For a research vessel, it was the kind of discovery that made careers. "How long will we be in orbit?" Jake asked. "At least 6 months," Ben replied. "Maybe longer if we find something really interesting down there." Jake felt a familiar excitement. Even after all these years in space, the prospect of exploring a new world still thrilled him. And now his children would get to experience it too. "The kids are going to love this," he said. "Speaking of the kids," Helen said with a grin, "I heard from Elena that Amy has been helping teach the new families about hybrid child development." "She's a natural teacher," Jake said proudly. Yesterday she was showing the Relian couple how to stimulate their baby's cognitive development using techniques that worked with her siblings. And Alex has been giving demonstrations on problem-solving skills to the research team, Ben added. That kid figured out a navigation puzzle that took me an hour to solve. Jake shook his head in amazement. His children never ceased to surprise him. Amy had become a confident leader among the ship's children, always willing to help younger kids or translate between different species. The twins Alex and Maya were developing their own unique personalities. Alex loved puzzles and technical challenges, while Maya was fascinated by languages and was already speaking 4 different alien dialects. The triplets, Sam, Sophie, and Danny, were still babies, but they were already showing signs of the accelerated development typical of human Velthari hybrids. Sam was the most active, always trying to crawl away and explore. Sophie was the most social, smiling at everyone she met. Danny was the thinker, content to observe everything around him with serious golden eyes. "Captain," came Lieutenant Baker's voice from the communications station. "We're receiving a message from the Velthari fleet ship Starwind. Commander Nixara requests permission to come aboard." Jake felt his stomach tighten slightly. Nixara's visits always brought a mixture of joy and stress. She had become more accepting of Jake over the years, especially after seeing how well his children were developing, but she still had strong opinions about Velthari family traditions. "Permission granted," Helen replied. "Have them dock in bay." 2 hours later, Jake stood in the docking bay with his entire family as Nixara's ship connected to the Aurora. Amy held Danny while Alex and Maya flanked Zarathik, and the triplets Sam and Sophie sat in a hover stroller that Jake pushed. The airlock opened, and Nixara emerged with her 7 children, now ranging from 6 to 18 years old. Behind them came someone Jake didn't recognize, an elderly Velthari woman with intricate silver markings covering her blue skin. "Sister," Nixara greeted Zarathik warmly. "And Jake, it is good to see you both. Who is this?" Zarathik asked, looking at the elderly woman. "This is Elder Myronthik of the High Council," Nixara said formally. "She has come to see your family." Jake felt his heart rate increase. The High Council was the governing body of the Velthari people, and their opinion carried enormous weight in their culture. Elder Myronthik stepped forward and studied Jake's children with keen eyes. She spent several minutes watching them interact with their cousins, noting how Amy naturally took charge of organizing the group and how the twins worked together to solve problems. "Commander Morrison," the elder said finally, "I have heard much about your family. The High Council has been following your progress with great interest." "I hope we've met your expectations," Jake said carefully. "You have exceeded them," Elder Myronthik replied, surprising him. "Your children represent something new in the galaxy, proof that different species can not only coexist, but create something stronger together." She paused to watch as Amy helped little Velm, Nixara's youngest, figure out how to play with a human toy. "There is something else," the elder continued. "The High Council has a proposition for you and your family." Jake and Zarathik exchanged glances. "What kind of proposition?" Zarathik asked. "We would like your family to serve as ambassadors between the Velthari people and the Human Federation," Elder Myronthik explained. "You would travel to different worlds, help establish new interspecies colonies, and teach others what you have learned about building mixed families." "That sounds like an amazing opportunity," Jake said slowly. "But what about our work here on the Aurora?" "The Aurora would become your base of operations," the elder replied. "You would continue your research and family programs, but you would also have the resources of both the Velthari High Council and the Human Federation behind you." Captain Rodriguez, who had been listening from nearby, stepped forward. "It would mean expanding our mission significantly," she said. "The Aurora would become a mobile center for interspecies cooperation." Jake looked at his family. Amy was now playing a game that involved children from 3 different species, all working together. Alex was showing Nixara's middle son how a human puzzle worked. Maya was attempting to teach another child a human song. The triplets were being passed around and admired by their older cousins. "What do you think?" he asked Zarathik quietly. "I think our children would learn things they could never learn staying in one place," she replied. "And we could help other families like ours." Jake nodded. The decision felt right. They had built something special on the Aurora, and now they had the chance to share it with the entire galaxy. "We accept," Jake told Elder Myronthik later that evening. As Jake tucked his children into bed in their expanded quarters, Amy asked him a question that made him smile. "Daddy, are we going to have more brothers and sisters?" Jake looked at Zarathik, who was nursing Danny while reading a bedtime story to the triplets. She caught his eye and smiled. "Maybe," Jake said. "Would you like that?" "Yes," Amy said without hesitation. "I like being a big sister." "And Mommy always said 10 children would be perfect," Jake laughed. "We'll see, sweetheart, we'll see." As he turned off the lights and headed to the living area, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed. He had gone from being terrified of having 10 children to seriously considering it. His family had become proof that humans could adapt to anything, even the wildest dreams of an alien wife who wanted a house full of children outside their window. The stars continued their eternal dance, and Jake knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, his family would face them together. After all, they were no longer just the Morrison family. They were pioneers, ambassadors, and living proof that love could bridge any gap between species. And if Zarathik wanted 4 more children to reach her goal of 10, well, Jake was finally ready to consider it. After 6 kids, what was 4 more among the stars?